Good afternoon. My name's Nathan Allen, and I'm here to discuss my STEM book that I chose. My book that I chose for the 8th grade was Divergent. This has been a popular movie in the theaters, and quite a number of my students have already read this book, so I figured I'd read through it, see what I could find in it. The book itself is based off of a post-war or post-apocalyptic kind of United States where you have societies that have been through some traumatic event, a dystopian society. And that society is split into multiple factions. And each faction is split according to personality. One's all about truth, another's about being a guardian. Some are about being selfless and giving up anything, not having mirrors in your house, not having excessive cars or clothing. And together, each of them has a role in society. Well, each group, when their children turn 16 years old, they have a choosing where the children are put through a test, a computer electronic simulated test that they inject them with some sort of serum that allows them to experience a hallucination. And through that test, they determine what would be the best placement for them in this society. The premise behind the book is that there's a divergent person, a person that can't be placed into any one section. They're capable of completing the tasks not under the rules, not under the books, and they're also able to basically think outside the box. They're able to think with the perception of all the different areas. The book goes along with one or two of the factions decide that they want to be in charge of the other factions, and a war ensues. And the way that this war ensues is they take the Dauntless group, which is the faction used to guard the Fearless faction. They are armed, one of the only factions that have weapons. And this group is then controlled through this serum and used some kind of mind control on them to make them do what this other group wants them to do. And the only people that are not affected are these divergent people who have the ability to understand reality from fiction. They end up battling, and the main character, she and one of the Dauntless leaders are able to overcome the bad guy, destroy the machine that's controlling everybody, and bring to light the fact that there's mind control going on, that the whole society is being manipulated and controlled by somebody else. Now, the story doesn't completely end because it's just the first book out of a series, but it brings to light the whole story behind this one specific girl and her travel, her move from one place to another. There's sub-stories where she finds out that her parents aren't really who she thought they were, that her mother was part of a different faction and then moved to other factions. But I found it interesting because there's a lot of places that you could put lessons from this book. I think that you could go through and scientifically you could talk about how the communities have split and how certain people with certain aptitudes are they better for certain jobs. You could take a social studies perspective. You could take a science perspective and talk about the idea of actual mind control. Talk about, is there the ability to control our thoughts, or the ability just to make us hallucinate and believe something that's not actually true. So it wasn't really mind control on some of the people. It was convincing them that they were in a dream and doing something that they thought they were supposed to. There's also the aspect of the society functioning from a world that's been broken. So they're utilizing every piece of land they can to grow food. They're utilizing every resource possible. And they haven't gotten into the story as much as to what happened, but the understanding is that it's been that way. It's always been that way for a few generations. There's a mixture of old buildings and new buildings. So architecture is an interesting part of the book. It talks about how the old buildings have decayed and they've used their resources to save specific buildings or rebuild certain buildings. And it gives you an interesting idea of erosion, an interesting idea of decay, an interesting idea of how society would crumble if it wasn't constantly being maintained. All of these go back to science standards, go back to social studies standards, and even mathematics. The Dauntless group uses scales to figure out a rating system on how to decide which students will become part of the group, um, whether or not the kids that are trying to get into the group will be allowed to or not. So they have to fight, they have to prove courage, they have to overcome major obstacles, and throughout the course, many of them die along the way, just trying to prove that they're good enough to be into this faction. So that's my book for now. I'm going to continue to decipher it apart. Hopefully I'll be able to get through the second couple books in the upcoming future, and I will take apart and see how much of this I can fit into our project. I'm working with the 8th grade, so this will be a little bit harder read than some of the younger ones. It's a little long, but its material is definitely at the 8th grade level. Thank you, and I look forward to finishing.